Welcome to our deep dive into the world of Tencent.
Tencent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got
Yeah, you got a lot.
an interesting mix of sources here. Excerpts from Lulu Chen's book, Influence Empire.
Right.
Some insightful articles.
Mm-hmm.
Even web pages in Chinese. So
Oh, wow.
it looks like you're really digging deep into this Chinese tech giant.
Yeah, you picked a good one. Tencent's story is really like a crash course in the evolution of the internet, especially in China.
Right.
We'll be tracing their journey from humble beginnings as, well, a copycat company
Yeah.
to becoming a global powerhouse in gaming, social media, and so much more.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Tencent's origin story starts back in 1998,
Okay.
the Wild West of the early Chinese internet.
To Wild West. Mm-hmm.
Internet cafes were all the rage, and a young engineer named Pony Ma,
Right.
along with his co-founders,
Yeah.
decided to jump into the fray.
What's fascinating is that their first big product, QQ, was a blatant copy of ICQ,
Wow.
a popular instant messaging service at the time.
So like a Chinese version of...
Imagine like a Chinese version of A or MSN Messenger.
Okay.
It's a bit ironic considering how much Tencent would later become a target of copycats themselves.
Yeah, right.
Right.
It's almost like they learned the rules of the game by playing the role of the copycat first.
Yeah, it's like a rite of passage, right?
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But despite the ethical questions, QQ's simple interface and focus on the Chinese market
Right.
helped them snag a massive user base,
Mm-hmm.
eventually even surpassing the original ICQ.
Which is pretty amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
This early experience really shaped Tencent's DNA, giving them this incredible drive to adapt and innovate.
Yeah.
They knew they had to constantly be one step ahead, especially in a market as competitive as China.
Right. And speaking of competition,
Yeah.
this brings us to a pivotal moment in Tencent's history.
Yeah.
The gamble that a South African company, Naspers,
Yeah.
took on them.
Yeah.
Imagine investing in a company that's basically copying other people's ideas and hasn't even figured out a solid revenue model yet.
It was a huge risk. Back
Yeah.
then, Tencent was relying on telecom carriers for revenue, which wasn't exactly a sustainable model.
Right.
But Naspers saw something in them, something about their potential in the booming Chinese market.
And that gamble paid off big time.
Oh, yeah.
Their investment eventually ballooned into billions,
Billions.
highlighting the incredible growth of the Chinese tech scene.
Yeah, it's really a reminder that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the biggest reward.
Absolutely. Yeah. Taking risks and
You gotta have a little bit of faith.
yeah.
It also shows how quickly things can change in the tech world,
Right.
especially in a market as dynamic as China.
Oh, absolutely.
A small bet can turn into a fortune overnight.
But this was just the beginning of Tencent's wild ride.
Yeah, buckle up.
They soon found themselves going head-to-head with a global giant,
Oh, whiz.
Microsoft. Microsoft, with its MSN Messenger, was already a well-established player in China, appealing to a more sophisticated user base.
Right.
It was a classic David versus Goliath situation.
Yeah, and you know what David did? They poached Goliath's champion.
Oh, tell me more.
Tencent managed to lure away a key Microsoft executive,
Who was that?
Jeff, to lead their charge against MSN.
Wow.
Talk about a power move.
Yeah.
So Tencent, the company that started by copying, now had a former Microsoft executive leading the fight against Microsoft.
That's got to be a story in itself.
And it gets even better.
Oh.
Jeff, being a brilliant product manager, understood the Chinese market like the back of his hand.
Wow.
He knew exactly what features would appeal to local users, and he wasn't afraid to take risks.
So under Jeff's leadership, QQ introduced features like customizable avatars and themes.
Right. Very simple things, but very powerful.
Yeah, basically letting users personalize their experience.
Mhm.
This was a game changer, especially for younger users who wanted to express their individuality.
It was a brilliant strategy that completely flipped the script on MSN.
Totally.
By focusing on local needs and embracing innovation, Tencent managed to outmaneuver a global giant and become the dominant force in instant messaging in China.
This victory proved that Tencent wasn't just a copycat anymore.
No.
They were a force to be reckoned with,
Hmm.
capable of taking on the biggest players in the game.
Right.
But their story doesn't end there.
It doesn't. It keeps going.
It was actually just the beginning of a whole new chapter.
Yeah.
A chapter that would be defined by an app that would change the very fabric of Chinese society.
WeChat.
WeChat.
WeChat's creation was a turning point for Tencent, but it wasn't an overnight success.
Right.
The mastermind behind it was Alan Zhang,
Okay.
a brilliant but introverted engineer who believed in the power of simple and elegant design.
So even with WeChat, there's a hint of that inspiration from other companies in Tencent's playbook.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that push-to-talk feature that made WeChat so revolutionary?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out that a small Hong Kong startup called TalkBox had pioneered the concept of voice messaging.
Right. They had the idea, but they lacked the resources and market reach of a giant like Tencent.
Right.
WeChat, with its massive user base and integration with QQ, was able to scale the concept and take it mainstream.
So it's a reminder that in the tech world, it's not always about who comes up with the idea first,
Right.
but who can execute it best and reach the most people.
And execute they did.
And execute they did, yeah.
WeChat quickly became the go-to app for communication in China,
Yeah.
evolving into something far beyond just messaging.
Right. It's almost like its own operating system at this point.
It's now a platform for everything. Mobile payments, social media, even mini programs that function like apps within the app.
Right.
It's a complete digital ecosystem.
We've talked about copycats and rivalries, but this brings us to another key aspect of Tencent's story, one that's a bit more complex and nuanced:
Yeah.
censorship.
Right. As WeChat became China's virtual town square, a
Yeah.
place where people connect, share news, and express themselves, it also became a tool for government control.
Yeah.
The government recognized the immense power of WeChat to shape public opinion, and they moved to censor content deemed politically sensitive.
Lulu Chen's book Influence Empire dives into some chilling examples of this censorship.
Yeah, it can be pretty intense.
Activists were banned. Satirical bloggers were shut down.
Right.
Even seemingly harmless content could disappear if it didn't align with the government's narrative.
It highlights the delicate balance that Tencent has had to navigate in China.
Yeah.
On one hand, they're a company driven by innovation and growth.
Right.
On the other hand, they operate within a system that places strict limits on freedom of expression.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, and it's something that has continued to shape Tencent's journey as they've grown into a global powerhouse. But their biggest challenge was yet to come: a rivalry that would define the landscape of the Chinese internet. Their battle with Alibaba.
That rivalry is a story for the ages.
Yeah.
Two tech titans, each with their own vision for the future of the internet, locked in a battle for dominance.
Right.
It's a story of innovation, betrayal, and strategic maneuvering that had implications far beyond the borders of China.
So let's dive into that next.
Let's do it.
What were the key battlegrounds in this epic rivalry?
Yeah, what were they?
And how did it shape the future of China's tech scene? We'll uncover all that after a quick, just kidding, we're diving right in.
No breaks.
No break.
Let's go.
We're going straight through.
What makes this rivalry so interesting is that it wasn't just about market share. It was a clash of personalities and visions, too.
Yeah.
You've got Pony Ma, the quiet engineer at the helm of Tencent, and then you've got Jack Ma,
Yeah?
the charismatic former English teacher leading Alibaba.
Right.
It's almost like a classic battle between the introvert and the extrovert.
Right, the clash of the titans. Two completely different styles.
It really is, and their contrasting styles were reflected in their company strategies, too. Tencent, under Pony Ma, was initially focused on building connections
Yeah.
and creating this digital ecosystem that people could live in.
Right.
Alibaba,
Yeah.
fueled by Jack Ma's charisma,
Right.
excelled at captivating consumers and revolutionizing e-commerce.
And this rivalry played out on so many different battlegrounds. E-commerce, mobile payments, entertainment.
They were everywhere.
They were constantly trying to outmaneuver each other. Like a high-stakes game of chess,
Yeah.
but with billions of dollars on the line.
One of the most dramatic moments in this battle was what Alibaba called the Pearl Harbor incident.
Oh, wow.
Pretty dramatic name, right?
Yeah.
It all went down in the mobile payments war.
Okay.
And it really highlights how Tencent used cultural insight to their advantage.
So wait, remind me about this Pearl Harbor incident.
Yeah.
What happened exactly?
Well, during the Lunar New Year in China,
It's tradition to give red envelopes filled with money.
right.
Tencent saw an opportunity here
Yeah.
and created digital red packets that WeChat users could send to each other.
So they took a tradition deeply rooted in Chinese culture and brought it into the digital world.
Exactly.
That's pretty clever.
It was genius. They gamified the process
Oh, wow.
and linked it to WeChat Pay,
Okay.
creating this viral sensation that drove massive adoption of their mobile payments platform.
Yeah.
Alibaba, with its Alipay system,
Mm-hmm.
was totally caught off guard.
Wow.
They never saw it coming.
This Pearl Harbor moment really shifted the balance of power in mobile payments,
It did.
giving Tencent an advantage that they've held on to ever since.
For sure.
It shows that understanding cultural nuances can be a powerful weapon in the business world.
Absolutely. Knowing your audience.
Right.
And this rivalry wasn't just about two companies fighting.
Right.
It actually had a ripple effect throughout the entire Chinese tech landscape.
Oh, how so? Startups were often forced to choose sides,
Oh, wow.
aligning themselves with either Tencent or Alibaba
Okay.
to gain access to their resources and networks.
It's almost like choosing a team in a schoolyard game,
Yeah, exactly.
but with much higher stakes.
Much higher,
Yeah. Picking the wrong side could be disastrous for a young company.
for sure.
This brings us to the story of Meituan,
Meituan.
a food delivery platform that became a pawn in this high-stakes game.
Right.
Meituan's founder, Wang Xing, initially took funding from Alibaba,
Mm-hmm.
but he felt constrained by their influence.
Yeah, he wanted to be his own boss.
So he wanted to chart his own course
Mm-hmm.
and saw Tencent as a more strategic partner.
Right.
So he did something pretty daring.
He did.
What did he do? I'm on the edge of my seat.
He secretly struck a deal with Tencent,
Wow.
granting them a significant stake in Meituan.
So this was a huge win for Tencent
Huge.
and a major blow to Alibaba.
It really was.
This was seen as a betrayal,
Yeah, a bit of a backstab.
and Alibaba didn't take it lightly.
Not at all.
Wow, I bet that caused some tension.
A lot.
So what happened next? Did Alibaba just give up?
No,
Okay.
not a chance. They retaliated by pouring resources into their own food delivery platform, Alibaba.
Okay.
And this sparked a fierce battle for market share.
Wow.
It was a costly war, but it ultimately showed how determined both companies were to dominate this space.
This battle for food delivery was like a microcosm of the larger rivalry between Tencent and Alibaba.
Yeah, it was a proxy war.
They were both fighting to connect users with services in the real world,
Right.
blurring the lines between the digital and physical realms.
Mm,
And in the end, Meituan, with Tencent's backing, came out on top.
they did.
They built an impressive logistics network and leveraged WeChat's massive reach to become the dominant force in food delivery.
It was a strategic masterclass by Tencent.
Yeah.
They knew that controlling the last mile,
Mhm.
getting goods and services directly to consumers,
Right.
would be crucial in the future. And they played their cards perfectly.
It seems like Tencent had this knack for seeing the bigger picture,
They did. They were visionary.
anticipating trends before they even fully emerged.
Mm-hmm.
And this foresight wasn't limited to China.
Oh.
They set their sights on the global stage,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in the world of gaming,
Right.
and they embarked on a series of acquisitions and investments that would transform them into a true gaming empire.
And they did it strategically, too.
Yeah, how so?
They recognized that they didn't need to conquer the global gaming market single-handedly.
Okay.
They partnered with the best in the business,
Right.
acquiring studios like Riot Games.
The creators of League of Legends.
Exactly, and
Right.
making strategic investments in companies like Epic Games.
The developers of Fortnite.
Yes, the masterminds behind Fortnite.
Those are two of the biggest games in the world. It's like they were assembling an all-star team of game developers.
Exactly, they weren't afraid to spend big and make bold moves to secure their position at the top of the gaming world.
Right?
But they also recognized the importance of nurturing domestic talent, too.
Yeah.
Their in-house studio, led by the incredibly talented Colin Yao, developed Honor of Kings,
Okay.
a mobile game that became an absolute phenomenon in China.
I've heard of Honor of Kings.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the Chinese version of League of Legends,
You
right?
could say that.
Okay.
It combined the addictive gameplay of MOBAs with the social connectivity of WeChat,
Right.
creating this cultural phenomenon that captivated millions of players, particularly younger audiences.
Yeah.
But this massive success, especially younger demographics,
Right.
drew attention from regulators.
Of course, with great power comes great responsibility.
All right.
Or in this case, great scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine the Chinese government had some concerns about the potential negative impacts of excessive gaming,
They did.
especially among young people.
They were worried,
Yeah.
and Tencent had to respond. They implemented features like playtime limits and age verification systems to address these concerns. Yeah.
It was a clear sign that even a giant like Tencent wasn't immune to government pressure.
So even as Tencent was building this global gaming empire, they still had to navigate the complex realities of operating within China's political system.
It's a tightrope walk.
It sounds like a constant balancing act.
It is a delicate dance.
Yeah.
And as they ventured into new territories like esports, music streaming, and even the metaverse,
Right.
this balancing act would only become more challenging.
Speaking of those new frontiers, let's explore how Tencent navigated the ever-evolving world of technology.
Okay, let's dive in.
From esports arenas to the virtual realms of the metaverse, Tencent's journey continues, and it's a story that's far from over. So you've got Tencent, this gaming giant, already dipping their toes into all sorts of digital worlds. What made them decide to jump into the world of esports?
I mean, it was a natural progression for them.
Yeah.
They were already dominant in gaming, and esports was exploding in popularity, especially in China.
Tencent saw the potential early on and invested heavily to build a professional esports ecosystem.
Yep.
They organized tournaments, created leagues,
Right.
even built dedicated esports arenas.
So they weren't just creating games.
Yeah.
They were creating a whole spectacle around them.
They wanted to create an experience.
Yeah, like they were taking the energy of traditional sports and bringing it into the digital realm.
Exactly.
Right.
They understood that esports was about more than just the games themselves. It was about the players, the fans,
Yeah.
the rivalries,
Right.
the whole experience. And they created a platform where this could all thrive.
Yeah.
But they also recognized that there were human stories behind these digital battles.
That's where Lulu Chen's book, Influence Empire, comes in, right?
It does.
Yeah.
Gives us a glimpse into the lives of these professional gamers.
Right.
The dedication and sacrifices they make to compete at the highest level.
And what stood out to you?
One story that really stuck with me was about this young man named Zhang, who
Yeah.
dedicated his life to mastering Honor of Kings. He came from humble beginnings and rose to become one of the top players in the country.
Wow.
But the pressure and
Yeah.
demands of professional gaming
Yeah.
took a toll on his health and well-being.
It's a reminder that even in the virtual world, the pursuit of excellence can come at a cost,
For sure.
right? It's like the old saying, everything in moderation.
Everything in moderation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it sounds like Tencent recognized this too.
Yeah, they did.
They didn't just focus on the glory and the spectacle.
Right.
They also took steps to promote responsible gaming habits.
They knew that the long-term success of esports depended on creating a sustainable ecosystem
Yeah.
that benefited both players and fans.
Right.
They implemented measures to address concerns about gaming addiction
Okay.
and worked to create a more balanced environment.
So they were trying to build something that would last, something that wouldn't burn out players or alienate fans.
Right.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah,
But it seems like they were trying to get it right.
they were trying.
And this commitment to balance and long-term thinking carried over into their other ventures, too.
It did.
Take music streaming, for example.
Okay, music streaming.
The Chinese music market was a bit of a Wild West back then.
Yeah, it was.
Piracy was rampant, and artists were struggling to get paid for their work.
It was a tough time for musicians.
Tencent saw an opportunity to create a legitimate platform that would benefit everyone involved.
So they wanted to bring order to chaos.
That sounds like a daunting task.
It was a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
They faced stiff competition from established players like NetEase, and their efforts to enforce copyright laws were met with resistance from users who were used to getting their music for free.
Right.
They had to change consumer behavior,
Right.
convince people that paying for music was actually worth it.
It's like they were trying to shift an entire culture's mindset about music and its value.
It was a cultural shift.
Yeah, that's no easy feat.
It wasn't easy.
But they didn't back down.
Nope.
They negotiated licensing agreements with record labels and built a robust music streaming platform that eventually became a major force in the Chinese market.
They did.
They even formed a strategic partnership with Spotify,
The other
a
five.
global music streaming giant, giving them a foothold in the international market.
So even as they were battling it out in China,
Right.
they were making moves on the global stage.
It seems like Tencent was always playing the long game,
They were always thinking ahead.
thinking 10 steps ahead.
Strategic masterminds.
But even as they expanded their empire and ventured into new territories, a new challenge emerged.
Oh.
The Chinese government, concerned about the growing power of tech giants, started cracking down on the industry.
The government was starting to take notice.
This was around the time when we started hearing a lot about data privacy concerns, content censorship, and increased regulation of the tech sector in China.
Right, exactly. The government introduced stricter regulations on everything from data collection to the amount of time children could spend playing games.
Right.
And even a company like Tencent, with its close ties to the government, wasn't immune to this scrutiny.
So they had to adapt, just like they always had. They had to find ways to innovate and grow while still operating within the boundaries set by the government.
Right. It's a delicate dance.
Yeah, it sounds like a delicate balancing act.
It is a constant negotiation.
Yeah.
And this tension between innovation and control became even more pronounced with the rise of the U.S.-China tech war.
Right.
Tencent, with its global ambitions, found itself caught in the middle of this geopolitical conflict.
Yeah, we started seeing headlines about data security concerns, censorship policies, and even calls to ban certain Chinese apps.
Yeah, it was a tense time.
It was a pretty tense time.
It was a period of uncertainty.
So how did Tencent navigate all of this?
Well, the U.S. government, particularly under the Trump administration, took a hard line against Chinese tech companies, imposing sanctions, banning apps, and even threatening to delist them from U.S. stock exchanges.
Yeah.
Tencent had to navigate a complex web of political pressures, economic sanctions, and public scrutiny, all while trying to maintain its growth trajectory.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting.
It was a challenging time.
Like trying to run a marathon while dodging obstacles and jumping hurdles.
It was a test of their resilience, but they weathered the storm, adapted to the changing landscape, and continued to innovate and grow.
So what's next for Tencent?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
They've already conquered gaming, social media, fintech.
Esports?
Even music streaming?
Music streaming, they've done it all.
What's left for them to conquer?
They've hinted at their ambitions in the metaverse.
Okay.
And they're constantly exploring new technologies and business models.
Yeah.
One thing's for sure, Tencent's journey is far from over.
Right,
and will continue to play a major role in shaping the future of the internet.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored Tencent's origins as a copycat company, their rise to dominance in China, their global expansion, and their navigation of complex political and regulatory landscapes.
It's been quite a journey.
It's been a wild ride.
It has been a wild ride.
Tencent's story is a fascinating case study in the evolution of the internet.
It really is.
The power of innovation and the challenges of operating in a constantly changing world.
For sure.
What stands out to you from all this? What are your own predictions for Tencent's future? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Tencent.